And the Hangout is live.
Excellent.
And why won't this move?
Excellent, Smithers.
There it is. There it is. Okay. I want to move that up there. And the Hangout is live. And welcome to Video Marketing Madness for another show. And we're doing a live Hangout while we record the podcast. And Ray's got a show on microphones for video today.
Yes, indeed. Should be fun stuff.
Should be fun stuff. So I hit the record button for the podcast. So let's see. There's one thing I need. There it is. Because if I don't read it, I'll space out, especially now that I've got a cold and I'm on all kinds of medication. Okay, I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
This episode of Video Marketing Madness is made possible by Free Video Editor. Free Video Editor is the easy way to start editing videos and doing all that fun stuff like green screening and 3-point editing and 4K video, but without having to pay the hundreds or thousands of dollars to buy a high-end editor. You can get it today along with a bunch of video goodies by heading on over to freevideoeditor.co. Leave off the last M for marketing. And on today's show, And on today's show, we're going to talk about how to get the proper audio in your videos by using the correct microphones.
I need to adjust my mic here a little. There we go. Okay. 3, 2, 1. It's the radio show about video marketing madness with Ray the Video Guy. I'm Steve Sleeper on the Earn.show podcast network, our Facebook page, Video Marketing Madness, Twitter, Video MKT Madness. Plenty of useful tips there every day. Yeah, that's good you're doing microphones. That's a big topic. And I'm sure you're going to be talking about Yetis and all the blue microphones.
Oh, yes. We will talk about all those wonderful things.
Fabulous. And if you're watching the podcast, you can see that I've got a blue Yeti, and Ray, who is wearing his big boy pants, he's got a professional radio microphone.
Yes. If you on the Hangout, you can probably see it here. It's we got the RE20, which is probably the most popular radio microphone. And you see it, if you watch old episodes of Frasier, you'll see Frasier and Roz use RE20s, and they've been around forever. And
who makes the RE20?
Electro Voice.
Yeah, Electro Voice. Electro Voice and Shure, I think, are the two big manufacturers.
Yep. Yeah, and Shure makes another one that's actually very good for this type of podcasting, radio type stuff. And of course, I can't remember the name of that particular microphone off the top of my head, but if you look up radio microphones, it's actually no, I'm sorry. The other one that's real popular is the Heil, Heil, for this kind of work. But Shure also makes a few of them as well. But the Heil is the other really popular one. So.
Heil sounds a little too stormtrooper for me. I don't know.
Might well be.
Okay. Well, take it away, Ray the Video Guy.
All right. Well, the reason I wanted to talk about this today is that what people seem to forget a lot of times is that audio is, in many cases, more important than your video. And what I mean by that is they've done plenty of studies on this, and they've shown that people will watch a video if it looks rough, if it's it's not the most perfect video in the world, it's tough to see, it's staticky, whatever. But if the sound quality is terrible, they'll click away faster than if the video quality is terrible. Because the big thing is, when you're looking at visuals, they're usually there to support what you're hearing. Mm-hmm. You're hearing somebody's voice, you're hearing a story, and then you're seeing it on the screen. So they'll forgive what's on the screen a little bit, but they will not forgive the sound that comes out of it. So if they can't understand you, they're going to click away. If it's difficult to hear, if they have to strain, they will give up. So the important thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that we are recording great audio at all times, no matter what type of media that we're trying to capture, whether it's a podcast or whether it's an actual video. You want to make sure that you're providing good, clean audio. So that's what we want to talk a little bit about today, and what types of microphones you should get and for what situations.
Yeah.
So
sounds good.
So I'm going to start off with probably the most needed information, which is for those of you who are taking a video camera, going somewhere and recording somebody, because that seems to be the most popular thing. Either you're recording yourself outside somewhere at a park, or maybe you're going to a business to record, a dentist doing a testimonial, or, his customers doing testimonials, things like that. What you want to do is you've got a few different options in that particular situation. And some of those options may depend on what you're using for a video camera. But the dirty little secret is you don't need some $10,000, $20,000 camera in order to take great video. You can use everything from one of those really nice cameras that we just mentioned, the $10,000 Sony camera, the latest and greatest. You can take something like that, but you could also be doing it with, let's say, your iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get good results, especially in a situation where you're just doing a testimonial using something like an iPhone or an Android phone, things like that. And what you want to be able to have more likely than not is a lapel microphone. And that is, the little clip-on tie microphones that you see newscasters wearing on the news. And the reason for that is because those clip-ons are so close to your mouth. They're literally, 4, 5, 6 inches away from your mouth. They pick up audio really, really well, and it's very clean. It's very, nice sounding. And the dirty little secret of this is, even if you have a $10,000 camera with one of those microphones that's built into the top of it, you're going to get better sound from a very cheap lapel microphone than you're probably going to get on the built-in microphone of that high-end camera. And the reason is just proximity. You bring a microphone away from somebody and you're going to get worse and worse sound. So even if you've got a very expensive camera, it's not going to sound good at a distance. However, that lapel microphone, even if it's a cheap one right in front of you, that's going to give you some great sound. And there's a lot of different choices for these lapel microphones. One site that we were talking about, Steve, before we started here is one of our personal favorites, which is B&H Photo and Video. And you can check them out at bhphotovideo.com. And on that site, they have all sorts of microphones for video. In fact, they've got a whole section called Audio for Video. And it's filled with lapel microphones and shotgun microphones. And what you want to do is you want to go there. You want to find a lapel microphone that's going to fit your situation. Now, probably we can break that out into basically two categories. One would be wired and one would be wireless. Mm-hmm. And by wireless, literally what you would have is you would have your lapel microphone that just goes to a little box, and that box wirelessly connects to a box that's attached to the camera. Those are fantastic. They're expensive. If you're gonna get a decent one that's gonna work for you, you're probably gonna be spending $300 and up.
I did find one for $100.
Well, and we're going to talk about that in a second because you really didn't.
Oh, it works though. But okay.
But I'll tell you why.
You're the video guy.
But and those things go up. I mean, if you buy a nice Sennheiser, you could be spending $2,000 on a wireless setup. Now, wireless setups come in two different versions, just like the old televisions do. They come in VHF and UHF. Okay, very high frequency, ultra high frequency. And what that means is that they're transmitting the audio through one of those two wave features, one of those two bandwidths, either the VHF or the UHF. Now, if we go back, for those of you who are older than about 35 or so, you remember in the old days with television, you had UHF stations and you had VHF stations. And if you had, if you happened to have an old wireless telephone and a UHF TV, sometimes you could pick up your phone conversations on the TV. Mm-hmm. And this is why we have to be very careful with the microphones that we pick up, because if you pick up the wrong one, you're going to get interference. So,
well, and you bring up a good point, because I did get the $100 one, and then my it's to record our pastor's sermons. We do the video, of the sermons, and he had a Fitbit on that he got for his birthday, and all of a sudden, it's like, what is that noise? So, okay, yeah, point well made. So,
and that's exactly it, because those will use the same frequencies that a lot of electronic devices will use. And so you could be picking up CB radios, you could be picking up phone conversations, you could be picking up, the Fitbit, things like that, buzzing from other things. So they will, in many situations, they will work, but there's going to be those times where it's going to pick up, some of that stuff that you don't want.
Especially in a field recording situation where who knows where you're going to be.
Absolutely. So you want to be careful with that. And for me personally, I would much rather just go with a wired microphone most of the time, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is because the wired microphones, those actually, you're not going to get interference. They're way cheaper. And in most situations, that's all you really need. And the only time I would say that the wireless really makes more sense is for those of you who are doing something like maybe you're recording a wedding where you're in the back of a room with a camera and they're in the front of the church, that kind of a thing. Then it makes perfect sense. But if you're doing a stand-up where somebody's 3, 4, 5 feet away from the camera, or maybe you're on a set and you've got somebody sitting in a chair, the wired microphones, they're a little bit more reliable. They're way cheaper. And believe it or not, you can get a nice, decent lavalier microphone that's wired for about $40 or so. Audio Technica makes one that's very popular, and I believe it costs about $40. Has like a 10-foot cord on it, so it's a very, very good one. It'll work well for you, and you don't have to break the bank for that. As far as the wireless ones, there's a lot of companies that you can choose from. Everyone from Sony to Samsung to Sennheiser to Audio Technica that we just mentioned. All of these guys have these different wireless packs, and you can try one of the, either UHF or VHF. You'll save a little money if you go for the cheap one. It'll probably work in most situations, but if you're doing mission critical stuff, you definitely want to be careful, because you could get one that has that kind of interference in it. So it's just something to worry about a little bit. But they can definitely work, and they're a lot cheaper. And quite frankly, as somebody who has left $500 microphones behind and never seen them again, it might make sense to go that direction. But yeah, the wired, for me, I almost exclusively use the wired now. I do have a wireless setup. It's a Samsung, but I don't use it very often. So I tend to stick with the wired microphones these days, and I'm glad I do. I think it provides a nice, clearer signal, because believe it or not, even with some of the expensive ones, they will pick up static.
Yeah.
So even if they're not picking up somebody's radio conversation, they will pick up static on occasion. So, for me, the wired ones, they make perfect sense for that. In your case, Steve, in a church, you got to go wireless. There's just no way about it. You can't do anything about that. So.
Yeah. And, we can kind of control that environment to, I just got to tell pastor to put it, leave his Fitbit behind and his cell phones and everything else. But we got a little more control over the situation.
Yeah. And actually, it's a good thing you mentioned the cell phone. That actually can be an issue with those as well. If you've ever been in a place where you're using a wireless microphone, every once in a while you'll pick up like something that sounds like ner, 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 and then about 10 seconds later somebody's phone will ring.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely an issue. But save yourself some money. If you don't need wireless, go with a wired one. They work very well. They're inexpensive, and they do a great job. Like I said, the Audio Technica is a great one to use, so you can check that out. B&H Photo Video will have that for you. You can find anything on there, so that's fantastic.
I've got that mic, and I love it. And just one thing though, make sure it's got a stereo jack. I think most of B&H's mics do, but just a heads up.
Well, and that's the next thing I want to talk about with this is the video camera that you're using, because as we mentioned, you could be using a high-end camera, $10,000 camera. you could be using a mid-range camera that could be somewhere in the $2,000 to $5,000 range, which would be like your Sonys and your Canons, and your Panasonics that are nicer. And then you've got your basic cameras, which would be the ones that you might buy at Best Buy, or maybe you order it on a place like B&H, but it's a lower end camera. Canon has some nice lower end ones. And then, of course, a lot of people are using their cell phones, or they're using their iPad. And that's a great option as well. All of these may require slightly different things. And so that's something you definitely have to think about with this. For instance, the higher end cameras and even the medium range cameras, they're probably going to have XLR plugins. Now, XLR, if you don't know what that is, that's those little 3 prongs that if you've ever spoken at a school or something like that where they use a microphone, you'll see the traditional microphone cable with the three prongs that plugs into the wall. That's an XLR. It's it's a higher end signal for the most part. And a lot of the higher end cameras, that's how they interface with microphones. So when you purchase a microphone, you have to know what connection you have. The lower end microphones are going to have what looks just like a headphone jack. It's going to be very similar to that, or the headphone jack on your phone or whatever. So it's going to be that little 1/8 inch connection there. So some will have that. What you need to know is, what does your camera have, and then order accordingly. Now, there are adapters. So for instance, I have a camera that does not have XLR input. But for instance, I've got a Canon DSLR, and that obviously has the 1/8 inch jack like your phone would have. So what you need to be able to get is something that will adapt from the XLR and then plug into the camera. And there's a lot of little boxes you can buy for doing that. And they're fairly inexpensive. They're going to be $100 to $200. And you just attach them to the bottom of your camera. You plug in your XLR microphone into the box, and then you plug the box into the 1/4 inch or the 1/8 inch jack in your camera. And so that works. And, in the past, most people dealt with XLR. However, with everybody switching over to these DSLRs, now we're starting to deal with that because you have to use the 1/8 inch jack. And so people are creating these products for it. But again, B&H Photo Video will sell you these adapters. There's a few different companies that make them, and they work very well. And that's how we've done it. We attach it to the tripod. So literally a tripod, there's a box, the camera sits on the box, the microphones plug into the box plugs into the camera. When you get to the lower end, or if you've got the DSLR, or you're working at a lower end, you're using your iPhone or you're using a cheaper camera, you can start to use the plug-in mics that we talked about earlier directly. So you've got your Audio-Technica lapel mic, you just plug it in to the camera, and you're off to the races with that. Now, the other thing that we have to talk about is the smartphones. More and more people are shooting video with their smartphones, iPhones, Androids. You can't just plug in a microphone into your iPhone and expect it to work. The smartphones use a slight, even though it looks like the same size, your microphone will plug in okay, they actually use a different jack. And the reason for that is because you're talking about not just a microphone, you're talking about headphone, microphone, and controlling the sound from the actual headphones. So you'll notice if you look at the end of your headphone jack for your phone, it's going to have 3 rings on it. And if you look at a microphone, it's going to have 2.
Right.
So that's the difference there. They look the same. Other than that, they'll plug in both fine, but the microphone will not work with the cell phones and the smartphones.
Now, do you know anybody that sells adapters?
Well, that's the thing. There are some options, however. There are microphones that are specific for using on your smartphone. And there is also adapters that you can use so that you can use that Audio-Technica, or you can use an XLR microphone and plug it into your cell phone. Now, if you want to go the adapter route, which I started doing because I already had microphones, you go to a place called KV Technologies, K as in Kevin, V as in Victor, Technologies. And on their site, they actually sell 2 different types of adapters. One that will allow you to plug just an 1/8-inch microphone in and plug that into your phone. The other one will have 2 plugs on it, so you can attach an XLR microphone, or you can attach an 1/8-inch microphone to it. So you can use the Audio-Technica, plug it into that adapter, plug the adapter into your phone. Now your microphone works.
But I thought somebody had this thing where you could take your iPhone or Android and you got like a little tripod for it and a microphone that works with it. Do you know of anybody who would have that?
It's funny you should ask, because I do. Yeah, what Steve's talking about is the other option for shooting on your iPhones and your smartphones is a specialty microphone that plugs directly into your phone. So it has that jack so that you can do that. And we actually sell those on our website, which is pocketvideopro.com. And the way that works is we actually have a new one now, which is even better than the one we had before. I used to have them custom made in England, believe it or not. But now we actually have a different one, and this new one actually has a switch on it. And the switch allows you to switch between smartphone and camera. And so what happens is you put it on smartphone, you plug it into your phone, and you're off to the races. You can record. You've also got a video camera. You unplug it from the phone, you plug it into your video camera, switch it to camera, and now you can use it just like you would with that little Audio-Technica mic on your camera. So you can actually do it with both. So it's a very cool little microphone, and you can dual use it, dual purpose it. Very nice product. It has great sound. I know that our good buddy Mike Stewart, the radio guy, he actually uses that for his recordings, and he recommends it to his folks because he likes the sound quality and everything. So very good little option there for you if you don't want to buy a whole bunch of microphones.
Yeah.
Now, the other options here is, we talked a lot about these lapel microphones, which are great, but there are some other microphone options that you can go with. And one, of course, would be the handheld mic, the traditional news reporter handheld microphone. Again, just like with your lapel mics, you can get both wireless and you can get wired microphones. And those microphones also come in various versions, such as XLR and 1/8-inch plugs. So you need to look at those very carefully, but they can be very useful microphones as well. Great for doing stand-up interviews. Great for what I used to use mine for was at weddings. I would pass it around the table, let people record messages, things like that. So if you get a situation where you need to have a lot of people grab a microphone and talk, good to have. Just make sure once again, you know what connections you have and work accordingly. Those will work with your iPhone if you use the adapter. So that's also a possibility as well. The next type of microphone that you can use is a shotgun microphone. And there's a number of companies that make these. The one that I use is by a company called Azden, Azden. And they sell those, again, at B&H Photo Video. You can check those out. They have a lot of different microphones in that category, but the Azden is a fairly inexpensive microphone that works very well. Now, if you don't know what a shotgun microphone is, essentially it looks like a big long stick, like a shotgun, and you point it at somebody, and from a distance, it will pick up their voice. And the funny thing is, we've tested this out a little bit. We were doing a TV program for a fishing show, and we were on a boat, and the other fishermen were in a boat, and it was pretty far away. And we had the camera, and we were recording different things, and we decided to try that microphone and point it at them, and we were able to pick up their conversation where we couldn't hear them in the boat, but the microphone was able to pick them up at that distance. It wasn't fantastic at that distance, but we could definitely pick up the conversation. So it's kind of like a distance spy microphone, man. Maybe if you've ever seen where you've got think of the NFL. Sometimes you see somebody on the sideline and they got that big dish. It's similar to that, except you don't have the giant dish on it to pick up the sound. But you got this long stick and you point it at them and it works well. Again, most of those are going to come only in XLR, so you will need to either have a camera that accepts XLR, or you'll have to get an adapter so you can plug it into other types of video cameras. What I do now is when I'm using my DSLR, I plug it into that box we talked about. The box goes into the camera, and now we've got a shotgun microphone for the DSLR. Fun little microphones. They work quite well. Good for situations where wearing a lapel microphone would be difficult, such as when we used to do a lot of exercise type videos. You can't have a wired mic on somebody doing jumping jacks and push-ups and all that. It just doesn't work. Wireless also doesn't work very well, but the shotgun works great for that. You can actually have a person literally pointing at the subject the whole time. So if they're moving, you can point it as they're moving and follow them and pick it up pretty well. The other option that you can get is we actually, for some of the exercise videos, we actually purchased what looks like a little stage microphone. It's got, it attaches to your ear, has the little thing that tapes to your face. You can barely see it, and that works well. Also works very similarly to the lapel microphone, except it's just a little smaller and attaches right to your ear. So those are just a couple of options there. Now, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here. We're doing podcasting. But aside from podcasting, there are some other ways that you can be doing video and audio that are direct into a computer, much like a podcast. For instance, such as screen capture videos where you're doing trainings, PowerPoint videos where you're doing voiceovers, straight up voiceover work. You need a good microphone for that as well. Now, for these, we recommend that if you're just starting out, go with something like a Blue microphone that we talked about earlier. They make the Yeti, they make the Snowball, a few other ones that are ice related. I think they have one called the Ice or something like that, the Icicle. But the point is they make very good microphones. They're USB, so you just plug them right into your computer, and now you can record your voice directly into the computer for doing voiceover work, for doing training videos and whatnot. You can also use a microphone like we've got here, the RE20, which is a higher end microphone. Again, it's a radio microphone. If you see people on TV that are in a radio station, you'll usually see one there. It's long and gray and usually is hanging from the ceiling and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's what we have here. Very good microphone. There's also the Heil, HEIL, which makes a very good podcasting and radio microphone. And there's a few other good microphones from companies like Shure and whatnot. Now, if you're looking for microphones like this, you can go to B&H Photo Video. Mm-hmm. However, I recommend that you go to a different website for these types of microphones. And the company you want to go to for that is called BSW, which is Broadcast Supply Worldwide. Mm-hmm. And the website is bswusa.com. And those guys have all sorts of great microphones for podcasting and voiceover work. And they test them for you. They show you which ones work in certain ways, which ones are best, why this one is better than that one, and all that other fun stuff. So it's a very good site you want to check out, bswusa.com. Now, word of warning, when you use the Yeti and you use the Blue microphones, the Snowball, again, they just plug in USB. They work directly. If you want to get a nicer radio microphone, such as an RE20 or the Heil, I believe it's the H250 or something like that, those are radio microphones, not computer microphones. They don't plug directly into your computer. So you will need to have some sort of interfacing going from the microphone to the computer. And unfortunately, with these radio microphones, they don't put out strong signals. They're not meant to. They're meant to put out a low-level signal, and then the equipment boosts the signal afterwards.
It's amplified. It plugs into a preamp in the control.
Exactly. So if you've got an audio interface that you plug into your computer and you plug in an RE20 or a Heil into that interface and get it into your computer, you're probably going to be disappointed with the volume level. It's going to be very, very low. So you do need to have some sort of amplification. For instance, down, for those of you on the Hangout, you see I'm pointing down here. I've got a rack down here with a few DBX boxes. And so we've got a gate down there. We've got a DBX 286. and those allow you to process the signal. They allow you to amplify the signal, and you can do all sorts of fun stuff with them. I'll be completely honest, I barely know how to use the darn things. So, and I know you can do a lot of cool stuff with them. For me, I use it to amplify and to gate out some of the other noises, but that's about all I use them for. But you can do a lot of cool stuff with them, boost your bass and all that kind of fun stuff. But you do need that. So in a setup like that, now you're talking about, you're spending $600 on a microphone, you're spending $600 on the amp, and any other equipment that you need. Plus, you still have to have the audio interface to get it into the computer, which might be another $100 or $200. So all in, you're going to be spending quite a bit of money for a setup like that. But the quality is hopefully well worth it. I like to tell myself it was well worthy investment. But
well, I will tell you now. I use a Blue Yeti, and by the way, if you're looking to buy a USB microphone like a Blue, B&H is fine. They're good.
Yep, absolutely.
The Blue is going to cost you right now at B&H $100. They just raised the price on it, but still $100, all inclusive, plugs into the USB port on your computer. If you're going to use a Pro mic, you got to go to Broadcast Supply, and that's going to cost you a lot more coin. What, at least $500?
Well, it depends on the microphone. They have some nice broadcast microphones that probably start in the $250 range.
But once you add
once you add everything in, you're probably talking, between $600 and a couple $1,000 to get it going.
Now, I will tell you, when I produce this show, I have to kind of boost the bass on my Yeti. I don't have to boost the bass on yours at all. In fact, I add a little treble to yours just so we kind of sound the same. So the sound quality on Ray's mic is better. However, I will tell you that the Blue Yeti, probably for most of folks listening, for what you're going to need, is going to be fine.
Yep.
Ray did an internship at a podcast network, and he wanted to go with real high quality, the best stuff, which is good. But again, you can get by with a Blue. I do just fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we were both using Blue microphones for 90% of the episodes that we've done so far.
Yeah.
So, and now one thing I do want to mention, and I love the Yeti, and I don't know if you've run into this problem, Steve, but the one thing that I've discovered is, and it might be because my desk is made of glass, so it's one of those tempered glass desks.
Mm-hmm.
When I use my Yeti, the fans and all that kind of stuff gets picked up.
Oh.
And if I pick the stand of the Yeti up and hold it in my hand, it goes away. I put it back down on the table, and you can hear it again. So you do want to be careful with that. Depending upon the surface that you're putting it on, you can pick up some of that noise from fans and hard drives spinning and all that kind of stuff. So that's just one thing to be careful with a little bit. And that's not a fault of the Yeti. It just happens to be the Yeti stand sits on your desk.
Well, I will tell you that my CPU, which sits on the floor, is on a couple blocks of wood to suck up that sound. My stand sits on my desk, but I've got some foam under it.
Yep.
And you can't see it, but right underneath my Yeti, I've got a big old towel.
And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. So and I've got egg crates tacked here and there and all around my office, and it's not bad. It's okay.
Yeah, and the other thing too with the Yeti, you can mount the Yeti, and that's what I actually did. Mm-hmm. Was I started to mount it on an arm, so it wasn't sitting on the desk, and that worked perfectly fine.
Remember, David Walsh had his in a shock mount, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, he did. He had a very cool little spider shock mount that you can get. Again, they sell those at places like B&H, so you can get those types of things out there. I've got, for my RE20, I've got it in the official RE20 Electro Voice shock mount, which is a gigantic unit, and it's on an arm, so I can move it up and left and right and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely some options out there for that, and you can have a lot of fun with it. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is when you're creating some of these different types of videos, you may run into situations where, and you've probably heard this a million times, you shot something with a video camera and then you did voiceover work and they sound completely different.
Right.
And a lot of people worry about that. For me, I've always liked that. And I leave that. I don't try to match them up or anything like that. I often break it up, and I think I've always felt it sounds interesting when you're out somewhere and you're talking and it sounds one way. And so now we're going to go back to the studio, and then now you've got a much richer, bassier, cleaner sound. And I think that's okay. I bring it up because a lot of people talk about it, but I've always enjoyed that difference. I like the fact that it sounds differently. So don't worry about that particular type of issue overly. It's not a major problem, and it actually is. It makes it a little more interesting in my opinion, anyway.
Well, and that's what people are used to anyhow. They watch the news, and Sally's out in the field, and her, and then and it's windy, and she's got a handheld, and she goes back to the studio, and it's a different quality altogether. People are used to that.
Yep, they absolutely are. And one other thing I wanted to bring up, which is kind of takes things in a different direction, because we're talking here about produced video, but of course, the popular thing right now is live video, live streams with Periscope and Facebook Live, and even with the new YouTube stuff that they're coming out with, and Snapchat's gotten into the live video thing and whatnot. With all of these, you're usually using your phone, and a lot of people are not using any kind of microphone. But one thing to let you know is you can use, if you've got a headphone for your telephone that has the built-in microphone, you can use that as your microphone to do your periscopes and whatnot, and you're going to get much, much better quality sound. So you can actually use your headphones as a microphone if it has the talk feature, and create better video that way if you're doing live, and that works quite well. And actually, it actually works if you're shooting video with your phone as well, and you don't have a lapel microphone, you can use that. In fact, our good buddy who been on the radio with us before, Brandon, he actually teaches in one of his YouTube videos how to take an old headphone set and turn it into just a lapel microphone. And, it doesn't really cost anything to do that. Very easy. You just, you snip this here, and next thing you know, you've got a microphone. So you can check that out. He's got over at his Sold with Video YouTube channel, he's got a video on how to do that. So you may want to check that out, because it is a viable option versus spending $40 or $100 on a microphone. So you can definitely benefit from doing that very, very easily.
Well, good.
Yes, indeed. And that's it. We got microphones.
We have covered the microphone universe as it relates to video, but we got a little bit into podcasting too.
We did, and like I say, if you're doing voiceovers and you're doing things like that, it's the same thing. So you're still into video with that, and of course our podcasts are video anyway, so we turn them into video. So
we do a hangout. We do a hangout.
Yes.
All right. It's the radio show about video marketing madness with Ray, the video guy, and I'm Steve Sleeper on the Earn.show podcast network. Today's show made possible by
freevideoeditor.co. You just went out there with your camera, used your new microphone to record a video. Well, now you need a good video editor to put it all together and remove the green screen and whatever else you need have done, add text. Now you got a free editor you can do this with at freevideoeditor.co. All the high-end features you expect in a high-end video editor without the $1,000 price tag. So check it out today, freevideoeditor.co.
I'm just amazed at what Shotcut can do.
I am too.
Very good stuff. Well, there's another show for you, another Video Marketing Madness. We'll be back, new shows every Thursday, so we'll be back next Thursday. And
same bat time, same bat channel.
That's right. And let's wrap her up with the jingle.
Woo-hoo, all right.
Okay, so stop record, and we're going to end the hangout now.
Yes.